beneath the endless dunes where the desert wind sings like a mournful ghost whispers. Tell of a city that should not exist. No map records it, no scripture names it. And yet buried beneath mountains of sand, the ruins lie silent, forbidden, forgotten. The Bedouin call it the place of pillars, a city struck down by God and swallowed whole. Ancient travelers spoke of roads that led to nowhere, crumbled towers rising briefly before vanishing again beneath the dunes. Some say the desert itself shifts to hide it, as if guarding a secret too dangerous for human eyes. And here is the riddle: traces of stonework, older than the pyramids, fragments of walls carved with patterns that no known tribe could have built. 7,000 years have passed since the city breathed, and yet its memory lingers, haunting myths from Arabia to Persia, from the sands of Oman to the forgotten oases of Central Asia. What kind of people could build a city vast enough to rival kingdoms, only to see it erased without a word in history? Why was it buried? Who condemned it? And most of all, what secret did they carry that demanded silence for 7 millennia? This is not a story of sand and stone. This is a story of memory of a civilization erased, and a warning sealed beneath the desert's endless veil. They say the desert keeps its dead. And among the stories whispered by the nomads, one city stands apart, a city with pillars that touch the sky.
Tonight I shall
In the
tell
Qur'an,
you a story
it is
of
called
ancient
Iram of the
times,
Pillars, a place of
a tale
unmatched
passed
splendor,
down through
ruled
generations.
by a people who grew arrogant beneath their towering halls. The tale tells us that their pride invited the wrath of God, and so a storm descended, burying the city beneath the sand forever. Some say it was a punishment, others a warning. But the ruins of Iram became more than a story. They became a curse. For centuries, travelers spoke of glimpsing it in the distance. A line of columns gleaming white against the horizon, then vanishing as they drew near. Caravan traders told of strange wells too perfectly cut, standing alone in the desert where no settlement should be. Bedouin guides warned strangers not to wander, not to seek the city, for those who did were swallowed by shifting dunes, their bones left to bleach beneath the sun. The city acquired another name, Ubar, Atlantis of the sands. To medieval Arab chroniclers, it was both myth and memory. Some wrote of towers so high they pierced the clouds. Others said its rulers trafficked with spirits, jinn bound by fire and smoke, who whispered forbidden knowledge into human ears. And always the end was the same: destruction, silence, burial. But legends seldom die quietly. In the tales of Oman, of Yemen, even of Persia, the city reappears in fragments. Sometimes it is called the city of brass, sometimes the city of gold. Always a place of impossible wealth, always ruined by arrogance or sin. When European explorers reached Arabia, they too heard the whispers, and they began to search. Some claimed to find shards of worked stone columns half buried in sand. Others found nothing but mirages, the desert mocking them with visions of a city that would not be caught. And yet the stories persisted. Why? Why would so many across centuries cling to the memory of a place no one had seen? Perhaps because the city was more than a legend.
This cannot be true.
Perhaps it was a shadow of something that had truly stood. For deep beneath the desert, traces remain, foundations older than the earliest dynasties, fragments of masonry, carved with patterns alien to the tribes we know. The memory of Iram may not be fantasy at all, but the echo of a civilization erased so thoroughly that only sand and rumor remain. The Bedouins say the desert guards its secrets, and perhaps this is why. For if the forbidden city truly existed, it would not simply be a ruin. It would be a revelation, proof that something vast, something powerful walked the sands 7,000 years ago. The desert does not keep its secrets alone. Across the world, other cultures whisper of cities lost, not beneath waves of sand, but beneath oceans, forests, mountains. Each tale carries the same refrain: a people rise, build wonders beyond their time, then vanish, leaving only fragments and fear. The most famous of these is Atlantis. Plato described it as an island kingdom of unimaginable wealth and power destroyed in a single night by the wrath of the sea. Scholars call it allegory, a metaphor for hubris. But the image has never faded, a civilization advanced beyond its age, drowned and forgotten, yet haunting our imagination for millennia. In the deserts of China, there is another ghost, Lulan. Once a thriving city along the Silk Road, its people traded silk jade and stories across empires. But the sands shifted, the rivers dried, and Lulan vanished. Explorers in the 20th century found bodies preserved by the desert faces, still lifelike after 2,000 years, staring upward as if caught mid-breath. Some called it the Chinese Pompeii of the sands. But in local legend, Lulan was cursed, its queen accused of sorcery, its towers consumed by desert winds in punishment. Far to the west, in the driest desert on Earth, the Atacama of South America, the Nazca people left a different kind of memory. Not pillars or towers, but lines etched into the desert floor. Geometric patterns, spirals, and figures so vast they can only be seen from the sky. To archaeologists, they may be ritual pathways. To local legend, they mark the presence of gods, beings who once walked the earth and then vanished, leaving only their symbols behind. And in Africa, whispers persist of Zerzura, a white city hidden in the Sahara. Medieval manuscripts describe it as a paradise of fountains and treasures guarded by giants or jinn. For centuries, explorers set out to find it. Many never returned. Those who claimed to glimpse it spoke of walls gleaming in the sun, then dissolving like a mirage as they approached. Different deserts, different names. But always the same story, a place of impossible splendor erased without warning, leaving only bones, ruins, and rumor. What connects these tales? Are they coincidences, inventions born of fear and longing? Or are they fragments of a single truth, memories of civilizations far older than our histories allow? When we place them side by side, a pattern emerges: the sea, the sand, the wind, all conspiring as agents of erasure. Nature becomes a vault, sealing away the beaten oceans, deserts, ice. And perhaps the most unsettling echo is this: these cities are not remembered as ordinary. They are always forbidden, cursed, punished for secrets too great to share. Whether it is Atlantis drowned by the sea, Lulan swallowed by the desert, or Iram crushed beneath the wrath of God, each tale suggests the same warning that what was known, what was built, was never meant to survive. For centuries, Iram of the Pillars remained nothing more than a story, a parable in scripture, a mirage in the desert. But in the late 20th century, science began to chase what legend had guarded. In 1992, a team led by explorer Nicholas Clapp and supported by NASA satellites studied the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, one of the most desolate deserts on Earth. Satellite images revealed faint lines cutting across the sand, invisible from the ground. They were not natural. They were the ghostly traces of caravan routes, paths worn by thousands of camels over millennia. And at their convergence, buried deep beneath the dunes, lay something else. A collapsed limestone fortress. Archaeologists who excavated the site called it Shisur, but the Bedouin knew another name, Ubar. The fortress had once stood over a vast underground cavern.
This is a mill.
When the roof of the cavern collapsed, the city
exactly
above
what
sank
we were looking
into the
for.
sand. What remained were fragments, walls of dressed stone, pottery shards, incense burners, all pointing to a settlement active for thousands of years. To many, this was the proof that the legend of Iram was not fiction. The Atlantis of the sands had left its bones behind. But Shisur was not alone. Across Arabia, satellite surveys and desert expeditions uncovered other anomalies. Patterns of ancient riverbeds beneath dunes, dry lake beds that once held water, and signs of large-scale human habitation in regions thought uninhabitable. The desert, it seemed, had not always been desert. Paleoclimatology tells us that 7,000 years ago, this wasteland was green. The empty quarter, now a barren ocean of sand, was once a land of rivers, savannas, and forests. Rock carvings in Oman and Yemen depict cattle hunters, even giraffes. The people who lived here thrived in a fertile world that slowly withered as the climate shifted. Cities that had flourished became unsustainable, and as the sand advanced, it devoured them. Yet the question remains, who built these cities and how? In ruins across Arabia, masonry appears far older than recorded kingdoms, cut with precision that seems out of place for the tribe's
Based on the
history
pottery
remembers.
shards found here,
I'm quite
Some
certain this wall
archaeologists
dates
argue
back
for
to
a
the early
forgotten
Roman
civilization, one that rose
Are we
before
sure about the
Sumer, before Egypt. Its memory preserved only in myth. Science then does not dismiss the forbidden city, it sharpens it. It tells us the desert was once alive, that great cities did stand here, that people did vanish. And still something lingers just beyond reach. Because each excavation raises more questions than it answers. Were these cities truly ordinary settlements lost to drought? Or were they, as the stories insist, keepers of a knowledge too dangerous to endure? What is a city if not a memory carved in stone? Walls hold more than mortar. They hold pride, ritual, the heartbeat of those who built them. And when such a city vanishes, swallowed by sand, erased by storm, it does more than disappear. It becomes a symbol. The desert itself is more than landscape. It is a devourer, a keeper of silence. To the ancients, sand was not just earth, but time, incarnate, grain upon grain, an endless tide that consumes all human works. To find a city beneath the desert is to find history itself in chains, buried by the hand of eternity. In myth, these lost cities are never ordinary. Atlantis, Lulan, Iram, each is portrayed as forbidden, cursed, punished. The lesson is always the same: what rises too high is struck down. Pride becomes ruin, wealth becomes silence. The city beneath the sand is the grave of arrogance, a monument to the truth that nothing endures. But there is another layer. Sand also hides. It protects what must not be seen. The Bedouins say the desert guards its secrets, and perhaps this is why to bury not only stones, but knowledge. In the Quranic tale, Iram's people were destroyed for disobedience. In the legends of Zerzura, giants and jinn were said to guard treasures too dangerous for mankind. The desert then becomes a vault, a vast tomb that conceals forbidden wisdom until the world is ready, or until it dares to dig too deep. Even the image of pillars carries weight. Pillars rise like bridges between earth and sky, symbols of connection with the divine. To bury them is to sever that link, to cast down a civilization that reached too far. 7,000 years of sand pressing down upon those pillars becomes its own metaphor, humanity crushed by the weight of its forgotten past. And perhaps the most haunting symbol of all is silence. These cities do not leave stories of conquest or decline. They leave absence, gaps in memory, whispers. The absence itself becomes the message that history is not a straight line, but a broken circle with whole chapters torn away. So when we speak of the forbidden city beneath the desert, we are not only speaking of ruins, we are speaking of every human attempt to rise, to reach beyond limits, to carve eternity from stone, and of the truth that eternity always reclaims its own. What if history is not a ladder climbing upward, but a wheel turning again and again? The forbidden city beneath the desert forces us to ask this. Because if it truly existed 7,000 years ago, then it was older than Sumer, older than Egypt, older than the kingdoms we call the beginning. Which means our beginning may not have been the first. Civilizations rise and we think them unique. But the sand tells another story, that what rises is also what falls, and what falls is also what returns. Perhaps the ruins beneath the dunes are not just a lost city, but a reminder that we are not the first to dream of permanence, nor the first to be punished for it. The silence of the desert becomes philosophy. It whispers that nothing is safe from time, not even memory. And yet the fragments we uncover, walls, pottery, roads cut into stone, suggest something deeper. That humanity has always carried a spark, an urge to build, to reach, to bind meaning into matter. Even if the sand buries it, even if millennia erase names and stories, the impulse returns. As if memory is not only what we inherit, but what we repeat. And here lies the most haunting thought: maybe the city was never meant for us. Maybe it was erased because its knowledge belonged to beings not entirely human. The myths hint at this: jinn gods watchers who gave forbidden arts, then disappeared. If true, then the ruins beneath the desert are not just human history. They are contact points, scars left by encounters with something beyond. So the question becomes, are we digging for our past or for something that was never ours to claim? If the desert conceals a memory of power, then uncovering it is not just archaeology, it is trespass. And trespass demands consequence. We like to believe progress is discovery, that each excavation is victory over ignorance. But what if it is repetition? What if the sand buries and we uncover only to walk the same path again? Blind to the warning carved in silence. Perhaps the forbidden city is not just a ruin, not just a secret. Perhaps it is a mirror, one that shows us what we have always been: builders, dreamers, and destroyers, circling endlessly in the desert of time. The desert keeps its silence, but silence is never empty. Beneath the dunes, beneath the bones of forgotten travelers, something waits. A city sealed in sand for 7,000 years. A memory erased, yet not destroyed. We call it myth, we call it mirage, but every grain of evidence points to the same truth: there was once more to our story than we dare admit. And so the question lingers: if one forbidden city sleeps beneath the desert, how many others lie hidden beneath oceans, beneath jungles, beneath ice? What chapters of our history have been torn out, scattered, buried, and what will it mean for us when those chapters return to light? Perhaps the desert is not hiding the city at all. Perhaps it is hiding us from the knowledge, from the beings, from the power that once walked here. And when the dunes finally shift, when the stones rise again, will we recognize them as ruins of our past or warnings of our future? Because if a city could vanish so completely, then so could we.